All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. We got lots to talk about today. We're going to try and get to as much as we can. We're going to start by talking about Joe Kent's shocking resignation this week from his position at the National Counterterrorism Center in protest over the war in Iran. We're going to also be discussing Tulsi Gabbard's ridiculous congressional testimony, which she lied her way through entirely. We'll be reacting to some insane clips from that testimony. We'll also be discussing the $200 billion requested by the Pentagon from Congress to fund the war in Iran that we're told is wrapping up soon, but also could continue for weeks, if not months. We'll talk about that today. And then we'll also discuss the potential of ground troops in Iran. How close might we be to actually seeing that happen? Because Trump has to make a choice here soon, and it seems, according to some reports we'll look at today, that he may be leaning towards ground troops in Iran. So we'll talk about all this today and more on the Quest for Clarity podcast.
It is about who we are. It is about what we believe.
They're building up this case just like we did in Iraq. Build up the war propaganda. There was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq.
The more you tell the truth, the stronger you become.
Mr. Speaker, we're not rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic tonight. We're putting coal in the boiler and setting a course for the iceberg.
Maybe we should improve the liberty of our own country before we seek to do so abroad. Some of us have paid attention to the fact that the expert class, including the foreign policy experts, lie all the time. The correct answer to this, of course, as it always is liberty. All right, everybody, before we begin, if you wouldn't mind going right down below this video and hitting like and subscribe here on YouTube, I'd really appreciate that. Helps me out a lot. Also, if you wouldn't mind going to my Instagram, X, and Spotify and giving all of those a follow, I'd also really appreciate that. Let's get into the news here. We're going to start off today by talking about Joe Kent's resignation. This was on Tuesday. He put out a letter on Instagram and Twitter, which really is a shocking letter. He resigned in protest to the war in Iran. He's the first major U.S. official from this administration to resign in this way. He may be the most major official to resign from the U.S. foreign policy establishment since really the Vietnam War, because this is really rare during times of war like this for figures to resign in protests like this, and especially as explicitly as he did in stating his reason why, which is the reason we've been talking about why people like me are against this war, is because it's not being waged on behalf of the American people. It's not helping the American people in any way that anyone can comprehend, but it's being waged on behalf of a foreign country, which is Israel. And Joe Kent says this explicitly in his letter. We'll read a little bit from it. We'll read the most important parts. It's kind of a long letter, so I don't want to read the entire thing, but it says, quote, President Trump, after much reflection, I have decided to resign from my position as director of the National Counterterrorism Center effective today. I cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to our nation, and it is clear we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. I support the values and foreign policies that you campaigned on in 2016, 2020, and 2024, which you enacted in your first term. Until June of 2025, you understood that the wars in the Middle East were a trap that robbed America of its precious lives and our patriots, and depleted the wealth and prosperity from our nation. Early in this administration, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. This echo chamber was used to deceive you into believing that Iran posed an imminent threat to the United States and that you should strike now. There was a clear path to swift victory. This was a lie, and the same tactic the Israelis used to draw us into the disastrous Iraq war that cost our nation the lives of thousands of our best men and women. We cannot make this mistake again. So, those were the most notable parts of Joe Kent's letter to Donald Trump announcing his resignation from his position as director of National Counterterrorism Center. And this is a massive deal. Joe Kent, for those who don't know, he is very good friends with J.D. Vance, very good friends with Tulsi Gabbard, who is the director of national intelligence. We'll get to her in a bit because she has totally disgraced herself. He's very good friends with a lot of people in this administration, and his brand, he ran for Congress a couple times unsuccessfully in Washington. And he's also very good friends with Tucker Carlson. And he has been a figure in this kind of world of the 2024 coalition for a couple of years now. And he's branded himself as America First on foreign policy, kind of like a J.D. Vance non-interventionist. And out of all the supposed non-interventionists in this administration that got prominent positions, people like Tulsi Gabbard and J.D. Vance, as well as others in the Defense Department and the intelligence community, he is the only one that seems to be actually sticking by this principle that he claims to have of non-interventionism, avoiding foreign entanglements, avoiding specifically wars in the Middle East, which he, as he gets into in part of this letter here, he lost his wife in Syria a couple of years back due to an ISIS attack in Syria. And he feels that the Israelis took part in manipulating and getting us into that war as well, which is true, by the way. And he feels betrayed throughout his 11 times being sent to the Middle East, his deployments to the Middle East. He says he feels betrayed for having been sent there, he feels, on behalf of a foreign country. So this letter is very telling, and it's been called conspiratorial, it's been called anti-Semitic, it's ridiculous. And he is being ruthlessly smeared as a result of this resignation, as a result of how he resigned. If he just kind of quietly resigned, nobody would really care. But with the explicit language that he used, and explicit, I mean he said exactly why he was leaving and exactly why he is against this war, he is being ruthlessly smeared in the media. And you have people from Alan Dershowitz to Mark Levin to all calling him anti-Semitic and a neo-Nazi. It's absurd what they're saying. So this is what is happening now. We have potential prominent administration officials resigning in protest. We've heard reports, I don't know how much I believe this, that Tulsi Gabbard might be considering resigning. This was today, I heard a report about that. I don't know how much I believe this. She has utterly disgraced herself. Even if she does resign, then I don't know how you can come back from lying as bold-faced as she has. And again, we'll get into some of the clips from that in a second. But what Joe Kent says here is that Iran was not an imminent threat, which I'm not even saying this. I'm just citing U.S. intelligence, which says this. And Tulsi Gabbard, in this testimony, which we'll get into, she says this. She agrees with the senators that are reading out the U.S. intelligence reports on Iran, that Iran posed no imminent threat. There was never an intelligence report, an official report from the from the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, that implied that Iran was anywhere near an imminent threat to the United States. And this is precisely because, and this is Tulsi Gabbard's own annual threat assessment from 2025, from I believe April or May 2025, she explicitly said Iran had not made the political decision to move to acquire a nuclear weapon. This is Tulsi Gabbard, the Director of National Intelligence, the person who's charged with accumulating all the available intelligence and making an assessment based on it. She said, not just some random person, Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI, said that Iran had not made the political decision to try and acquire a nuclear weapon. And regardless of that, even though prior to June, that was just like a month or two prior to the 12-day war, we still went to war in June on behalf of Israel and launched what was known as the 12-day war. Israel went in first, we went in the last couple days, and struck Natanz, Fordo, and Isfahan, their nuclear facilities, and tried to destroy all of their nuclear capabilities. And this wasn't on the pretext that they were trying to acquire a nuclear weapon, because according to Tulsi Gabbard, the head intelligence officer of our country, they weren't. This was because Israel is it's Israel and it's the Israel lobby in the United States, which are in the ear of Donald Trump, strongly implying that Iran is trying to make a nuclear weapon and Trump has to act now. And that's what Joe Kent says in this letter. Now, if we fast forward to now, there has been no intelligence. And Tulsi Gabbard, I'll show you this clip. Tulsi Gabbard admits there's been no intelligence that suggests that Iran was moving towards rebuilding their nuclear facilities. And there's no intelligence that implies anything but those facilities having been completely obliterated from the strikes back in June. Again, Natanz, Isfahan, and Fordo. Those strikes back in June from the United States completely obliterated them and set them back, according to some reports, years. And they would take them years to rebuild. And there has been no intelligence or satellite footage that shows Iran trying to rebuild those facilities. None. And this was known. I talked about this on the podcast in the build-up to this war. There was no available intelligence suggesting Iran had rebuilt their nuclear facilities or were trying to rebuild to the point where they could get a nuclear bomb. Ted Cruz himself said this. Ted Cruz, one of the biggest advocates of this war, said this on Face the Nation the weekend that this war started. So this was common knowledge that Iran had not made the decision to acquire a nuclear weapon and that Iran was not moving to rebuild those facilities in any meaningful way since the strikes in June between then and now when this war was launched. And Tulsi Gabbard admits that in this clip. Here is Tulsi Gabbard and John Ossoff, the senator from Georgia, going back and forth on this. And it's a little bit of a long clip, but it's important to watch the whole thing. Ossoff leads her down this logical path here of if Iran had their nuclear sites completely obliterated back in June, and if they hadn't been touching it since then, if they hadn't tried to rebuild their nuclear facilities from June to now, then they wouldn't be an imminent nuclear threat now, would they? And Tulsi Gabbard just refuses to answer. Take a look.
Under the law, you are responsible for providing national intelligence to the president, correct?
Yes.
And to the heads of executive branch departments and agencies, yes?
Yes.
And to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and senior military commanders?
Across the IC, yes.
And to the Senate and the House and relevant committees, correct?
Yes.
And the law states that the national intelligence you provide to Congress, quote, should be timely, objective, and independent of political considerations, correct?
Yes.
And you noted in your opening statement you're here fulfilling a statutory responsibility and that your testimony, quote, represents the IC's assessment of threats,
That's right.
correct? That opening statement, as submitted to the committee in advance of this hearing, stated that as a result of last summer's airstrikes, quote, Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated, end quote, correct?
That's right.
And is that in fact the assessment of the intelligence community?
Yes.
So the assessment of the intelligence community is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated by last summer's airstrikes.
Yes.
And the opening statement you submitted to the committee last night also stated, quote, there has been no effort since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability, end quote, correct?
That's right.
And that's the assessment of the intelligence community.
Yes.
The White House stated on March 1st of this year that this war was launched and was, quote, a military campaign to eliminate the imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, end quote. That's a statement from the White House. Quote, the imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime. Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was an imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime?
The intelligence community assessed that Iran maintained the intention to rebuild and to continue to grow their nuclear enrichment capability.
Was it the assessment of the intelligence community that there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime, yes or no?
Senator, the only person who can determine what is and is not an imminent threat is the president.
False.
And
this
he
is the
made that
worldwide. This is the
determination.
worldwide threats hearing where you present to Congress national intelligence, timely, objective, and independent of political considerations. You've stated today that the intelligence community's assessment is that Iran's nuclear enrichment program was obliterated and that, quote, there had been no efforts since then to try to rebuild their enrichment capability. Was it the intelligence community's assessment that nevertheless, despite this obliteration, there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime? Yes or no?
It is not the intelligence community's responsibility to determine what is and is not an imminent threat.
Okay.
That is up to
Here's
the president
the problem.
based on a volume
No,
of
it is
information
precisely
that he receives.
It is precisely your responsibility to determine what constitutes a threat to the United States. This is the worldwide threats hearing where, as you noted in your opening testimony, quote, you represent the IC's assessment of threats. You are here to represent the IC's assessment of threats. That's a quote from your own opening statement. And so my question is, as you're here to present the IC's assessment of threats, was it the assessment of the intelligence community that, as the White House claimed on March 1st, there was a, quote, imminent nuclear threat posed by the Iranian regime? Yes or no?
Once again, Senator, the intelligence community has provided the inputs that make up this annual threat assessment.
You won't answer the question.
It is the nature of the imminent threat that the president has to make that determination based on a collection and volume
You're here
of
to be
information and
timely.
intelligence that he is provided with.
You're here to be timely, objective, and independent of political considerations.
Exactly what I'm doing.
No, you're evading a question because to provide a candid response to the committee would contradict a statement from the White House.
Now, the logical question that we can take away from that clip is if the intelligence community, Tulsi Gabbard, John Ratcliffe, I don't like John Ratcliffe, but if Tulsi Gabbard, as the director of national intelligence, can present the intelligence to Donald Trump, these intelligence reports that suggest Iran is not an imminent threat to the United States, and Trump can just ignore this intelligence, and without even acknowledging the contradiction, without even trying to make an effort to convince the public that the intelligence is wrong, without even any sort of explanation of the intelligence saying one thing and the president saying another, and not even the implication that there's intelligence that we don't know. They haven't even implied that. Usually there's the implication that there's something that the public doesn't know, that only the president knows, and the president had to act. They're not even really saying that. They're saying, on the one hand, this intelligence is correct. Tulsi Gabbard says, yes, she agrees with this. But on the other hand, Trump, from his own imagination and his own reading of the situation, concluded that no, Iran was an imminent threat. Even though none of the intelligence that was presented to him suggested this, even though nobody who knows anything about this said that, Trump on his own came to this conclusion. And according to Tulsi Gabbard, once Trump's imagination is landed on the position that there was an imminent threat, then that becomes reality. That's essentially what Tulsi Gabbard is saying there. And of course, that's absurd. Because Trump thinks an imminent threat exists, that doesn't make it necessarily exist. It either exists or it doesn't. That's independent of whether Trump thinks it does or not. That's absurd. So the logical question is, why does Tulsi Gabbard have a job if her opinion isn't even going to be taken into consideration? If the intelligence she is tasked with accumulating and providing to Trump isn't even going to be taken into consideration, then why is she still there? Here's the clip of Representative Gomez asking her this very basic question. Take a look.
Yesterday you said that only the president, only the only person who can determine what is an imminent threat is the president of the United States. Do you stand by that statement?
Yes, I do.
Director Ratcliffe, do you agree with that assessment? That the president is the only person that can determine if something is an imminent threat or not?
The president's commander-in-chief gets to make a decision about what's an imminent threat. The intelligence community, well, the intelligence.
Reclaim my time. Reclaim my time.
Intelligence community has provided a body of intelligence that supports
the reason why
the decision
is that if the president can determine and ignore what you're doing, why do you guys even have a job? Why do you even advise them? So you're saying tomorrow the president of the United States can say China is an imminent threat, and then he can take his own. No matter what the intelligence says, he can take his own action.
Now, another crazy thing that Trump has been saying is that everybody in the administration is shocked that Iran struck the neighboring Gulf countries, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Bahrain. Apparently, Trump was totally shocked by this development. He's shocked by this. There was a clip of him saying he's shocked by the fact that Iran has been able to close the Strait of Hormuz.
Iran, who's truly a nation of great terror and power. Look what happened in the last 2 weeks. They weren't supposed to go after all these other countries in the Middle East. Those missiles were set to go after them. So they hit Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. Nobody expected that. We were shocked. And the other one, they fought back. They could have yielded.
Now, if you've been watching my show or anybody's show who is honest and a rational person, if you've been listening to the actual experts on this, like John Mearsheimer and Jeffrey Sachs and Trita Parsi, then you would be well aware that this was the thing Iran was going to do in response to this. This was very predictable. And not only these third-party independent people who discuss these things, they weren't the only ones saying this. The Pentagon's assessment said this. The Pentagon's own reporting has consistently, for decades, since 2007, has said that Iran has escalation dominance in a war. If we were to go to war with Iran, they have escalation dominance, meaning they can hit bases in all of these countries, U.S. bases, in all of these countries, and this is what they would do, and they could close the Strait of Hormuz. This is known. This isn't some shocking breaking news. Tulsi Gabbard knows this. She's said this before. So this is not a shocking thing. Trump says he's shocked by this, which either means Trump is just making stuff up. It could also mean he's deranged, or it means Tulsi never presented this intelligence to him. So here's the clip of Tulsi explaining this. Take a look.
The president continues to say as well that, he had no idea, was shocked that the Iranians had moved to take over the Strait of Hormuz. Did you provide any intelligence that would say that it would be, that it was not likely that the Iranians would try to move on the strait?
I'm not aware of those remarks, and I think those of us here at the table can point to the fact that historically the Iranians have always threatened to leverage their control over the Strait of Hormuz.
Why would the president say he was amazed?
I'm not aware of those remarks.
What about the comments the president made that thought that he was surprised again? Reports that Iran struck the adjacent Gulf states.
Again, I'm not aware of those remarks. We have been
let me
and
ask you this.
continue to provide
Did you brief the president? Did you brief the president? Did you brief the president if he starts a war of choice that the likely result would be that Iran would strike adjacent Gulf nations and close the Strait of Hormuz? Did you brief him on those two facts that I think have been consistently the assumptions of the intelligence community?
I have not and won't divulge internal conversations. I will say that those of us within the intelligence community continue to provide the president with all of the best objective intelligence available to inform his decisions.
So it's very clear by these seemingly lack of communication within the administration, the disagreements that are very obvious in the administration, and Trump just doing his own thing, something has gone terribly wrong here. Because we all know that Tulsi Gabbard, J.D. Vance, Trump himself said for years consistently that a war with Iran was off the table. This was something that we would not do. It would be very detrimental to our country. It's not in our interest. It might be in Israel's interest, but it's not in ours. We have distinct interests from this country. J.D. Vance said that explicitly on Tim Dillon's show in the lead up to 2024. So something has gone terribly wrong here. What has happened is that this movement in this White House has been completely co-opted by Israel firsters, by the neoconservatives, and by the war party. That's what's happened here. Because let's take a look at some of the examples from the last couple months of where these priorities actually lie, where the position in the administration in terms of foreign policy actually is. Who has been on the outs in the last couple months? It's Tucker Carlson, who formerly was a very close friend of Donald Trump. Now Trump is calling him a loser. He's former MAGA. He's lost his mind. He's kooky. So Tucker Carlson, who's been advocating against this war, he's out of there. Joe Kent is out of there. Marjorie Taylor Greene is out of this inner circle because she's against these wars. Thomas Massie is out of MAGA because he's against the wars. Megyn Kelly, who is against this war, is out of MAGA. Candace Owens is out of here. So all of these people, these former kind of prominent figures in this movement, are completely disowned and out of here because they're against this war. Who has been embraced by this movement? It's figures like Mark Levin, who's never seen a war he doesn't want to fund for eternity and send Americans to go fight in. It's Mark Levin, who prioritizes Israel over the United States very clearly and very obviously, who lobbies for Israeli interests in the White House with Donald Trump a few days before the 12-day war got launched. It's Lindsey Graham, who's peeking his head around the corner in Air Force One after Nicolas Maduro was captured and says Cuba's next, as if he's at the driver's seat for all this. He was on Fox News with Sean Hannity the other day, telling Saudi Arabia, on Sean Hannity's show, saying to Saudi Arabia, I'm willing to make a deal with you. You just got to do this. This is completely ignoring the fact he is not in a position as a senator to make deals with Saudi Arabia. He's announcing, proclaiming on Fox News every single day that America's going to go invade Cuba or something, and that Trump should get involved in Lebanon. He's been completely embraced and endorsed by Donald Trump for re-election. This is the people that have been embraced and who are surrounding Trump in this second term and are very clearly influencing the foreign policy decisions that are being made by this administration. It's not Tucker Carlson. It's not Joe Kent. It's not the non-interventionist wing of the party. It's not the America First wing of the party. It's the neocons. It's the war party that are influencing all of the foreign policy decisions being made by Trump. The former never-Trumpers, by the way. 2016, what did Mark Levin say during the 2016 election? He said, I'm not going to vote for Trump, and I'm not going to tell my supporters to vote for Trump. He says that Trump's against American strength in the world. He wants to be an isolationist. This is Mark Levin in 2016. This is Ben Shapiro in 2016, who gave Trump on Fox News the other day an A+ grade. Ben Shapiro was a never-Trumper. He said that Trump wanted to be an isolationist, pull us back from the world. And now Ben Shapiro can't get enough of this war in Iran. This is what has happened here. There's been a complete... There has been a hostile takeover of the Trump White House by warmongers, by the Israel First crowd, and they have completely kicked out anybody who is even slightly critical of wars at all. J.D. Vance, where is J.D. Vance, by the way? J.D. Vance hasn't been seen in weeks. He's tweeted once in the last 3 weeks. He's very obviously not happy about this. Joe Kent said today on Megyn Kelly's show that J.D. Vance has been put in a tough spot because of this. That's what Joe Kent said. Same thing with Tulsi Gabbard, who's now rumored to be considering resigning. This is who is on the outs. DNI, Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI. There's a joke within the administration that DNI stands for do not invite, because she will be a critic to potential interventionist policies in the administration. So they don't even bother to invite her to the meetings anymore. That started back during the 12-day war. And for some reason, she stayed in despite the humiliation ritual. Donald Trump is just excluding all of these voices that are critical, just completely ignoring them in favor of Mark Levin and Lindsey Graham, who do you guys remember Lindsey Graham called Donald Trump a xenophobe, bigot, and that he was not the Republican Party? Now Lindsey Graham can't get enough. Lindsey Graham is on Fox News every day, literally cheerleading for every move that Trump is making. Does that not tell you something? Lindsey Graham, who gets booed at every Trump rally that he's featured at, who Trump is well aware, the base of MAGA, the average people of this country, he's well aware they can't stand Lindsey Graham, yet he repeatedly is pushing him in front of the camera. He's on Air Force One with him every single day. Every foreign policy move that Trump makes, there's Lindsey Graham on all the big shows to sell it to the public. What is going on here? Something is obviously drastically changed. Something has gone wrong. And nobody wants to admit it, but it's very obvious. The people that were on the outs, the never-Trumpers that wanted nothing to do with this movement 10 years ago, have completely taken it over, infiltrated every corner of this administration, and are using it to their ends. The America Last ends that they've been championing their entire careers, whether it be in broadcasting or in politics. They have hijacked this movement and the momentum behind it to their ends. That's what's happening here. Now, we'll get to the latest of the actual war here. That's what's happened with this administration. The latest with this war is that we're considering ground troops, as if it couldn't get any better. We're considering ground troops. This is CBS News today. This was just a few minutes ago. They released this article, their exclusive report, Trump administration making heavy preparations for potential use of ground troops in Iran. It says, quote, Pentagon officials have made detailed preparations for deploying U.S. ground forces into Iran. Multiple sources briefed on the discussions told CBS News. Senior military commanders have submitted specific requests aimed at preparing for such an operation as President Trump weighs moves in the U.S.-Israeli-led conflict with Iran, the sources said. Mr. Trump has been deliberating on whether to position ground forces in the region, sources said, on condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly. It was unclear under what circumstances he would authorize the use of troops on the ground. Quote, no, I'm not putting troops anywhere, he told reporters in the Oval Office on Thursday when asked about the ground troops, but quickly added, quote, if I were, I certainly wouldn't tell you. So, I guess we're moving towards ground troops now? This war, let's just remember the timeline here. This war was launched Friday at midnight, Saturday, middle of the night, 3 weeks ago, almost 4 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago tonight. And we were told originally that this war was going to take 4 to 5 days. That was the original timeline. Well, we're almost 4 weeks into this war. where we're now under the impression, the latest timeline we were given was like 2 weeks ago. They said 4 to 5 weeks. We're about to enter the 4th week, and Trump says it could take a couple more weeks to secure the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran has shut to Trump's surprise. And now, to open the Strait of Hormuz, Trump said today that Trump wants to negotiate, but they don't know who to negotiate with because everybody's dead. And you can thank the Israelis for that because they are known for, whether it be in any conflict, killing the negotiators so that the conflict can go on for much longer and destabilize the region more. This is what the Israelis are known for. They killed the Iranian negotiators. So Trump has no idea who to negotiate with now. Witkoff is trying to reach out, according to reports. He's privately trying to reach out to Arakchi to try and negotiate something here. But nobody's answering. They're just ignoring them. Iran is digging its heels in because they feel this is an existential moment for them now. They have to try and create deterrence against the United States from ever doing this again. They have to make it increasingly expensive, increasingly costly for the United States. So Trump, without any potential negotiations in sight, he's going to basically try and pry the Strait of Hormuz open using force. And to do this, he asked NATO countries for help in opening the Strait of Hormuz, to which everybody declined. Like, can we lose more aura? I mean, like, seriously. These countries, we've been bashing these countries, Trump has, for the last year, by the way. And then when we get into trouble, Trump goes basically begging to Germany and to France, asking for their help in opening the Strait of Hormuz. And they say, no, this is not our war. I mean, does it get any more embarrassing and humiliating than that? These countries that we literally prop up, we fund their war in Eastern Europe, and they're going to tell us no? I mean, it doesn't get any more. This is just a perfect vignette of everything that has gone disastrously wrong, with the strategic standing of the United States as a result of this 4-week war so far. We're only 4 weeks in. These other countries don't want to get involved in this. Why would they? This isn't their war. We didn't even want to get involved in this. We were brought to this against the will of the American people. Plenty of people were saying how this would go. It would result in exactly this situation, where the Strait of Hormuz will be closed and it'll be really difficult to get it back open. So now they're considering, because the NATO allies said no, they're not going to help us. Now we're considering escalating with ground troops, potentially on some islands off the Persian Gulf, off the Iranian coast, potentially Karg Island, where 90% of Iran's oil is exported from. And I've even seen reports that they're considering invading the coastline of Iran and trying to push the radius from which they can launch missiles back within their country. This would be the most insane operation I think I've ever seen in my life. The idea that they're going to invade the Iranian coastline and try and take out their missile launchers that are deeply embedded inside of mountains. This could has the potential to result in mass casualties. That's what we're talking about here. And this is apparently actively being considered. And this is the latest on the war. Apparently to fund this whole operation, which we were told was going to be a couple days, and then turn into a couple weeks, Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon is requesting $200 billion in increased funding to fund this war. Which, by the way, if they were to actually get that funding from Congress, which they're considering using budget reconciliation to do, you know how much that would bring us, the total cost of this war, to something like $230 billion, roughly, that's on the books. That's more than the entire war in Ukraine that has been going on for 4 years, okay? So this 4-week operation in Iran, if this budget gets approved, would be more costly than the 4-year war in Ukraine. Think about that. Is this not completely insane to anybody else? Like, where are the priorities exactly? What happened to saving the money and spending it on America? What happened to lowering the budget? I mean, this is insane. What happened to the Doge cuts, by the way? We're going to give $200 billion more that we just don't have, by the way, just to make it clear. We don't have this money. This will be printed money. This will be printed, and it'll lead to inflation, as it always does. We're going to give $200 billion more to the Pentagon, which hasn't passed an audit in like 9 years, I think, to fund this war in Iran that'll be more expensive after this than the war in Ukraine that has been going on for 4 years. And the war in Iran's been going on for 4 weeks. This is insane. Anyone saying that this isn't an completely unhinged operation at this point is just lying. You're telling me $200 billion. How long are we planning to stay here? Apparently it's costing like $2 billion a day to stay in this war, roughly. Those are the estimates. So you're telling me we're planning to stay for 100 more days? This is craziness. This is absolutely madness. This is the Associated Press article about this budget. Quote, the Pentagon is seeking $200 billion in additional funds for the Iran war, a sizable amount that is certain to be met with questions from Congress, which would need to approve any new money. The department sent the request to the White House, according to a senior administration official, who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss the private information. Asked about the figure at the press conference on Thursday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth did not directly confirm the amount, saying it could change. Quote, it takes money to kill bad guys, Pete Hegseth said. You gotta love the just childish, stupid, low IQ statements coming out of this Pentagon, by the way. Pete Hegseth, this like bumbling fool, okay? Pete Hegseth, it takes money to kill the bad guys. Really? This was the mindset we were all told we were losing with this administration. Remember when Trump told Bill O'Reilly in like 2015 or 2016, when O'Reilly said, Putin's a killer? Trump said, you don't think we got killers? That was the mindset. This is what I'm talking about when it says this has changed so much in 10 years. Get money to kill the bad guys. This is the moral stupidity. This like a foreign policy, this like liberal foreign policy of the good versus the bad guys that completely detaches you from the realities on the ground. Like, this was the mentality we were told we were going to be losing, this childish, stupid, warmongering mentality that we were told this new era of foreign policy realism and the new right, we were told that this movement would bring us to a realistic foreign policy. But now we're still using them. This is a John McCain statement. It takes money to kill the bad guys. That sounds like John McCain. That sounds like George Bush. Like, this is garbage. That's just garbage. You don't have to just accept this. If you're listening to this, you're on the right wing, and you are somewhat upset about the direction of this foreign policy that we're taking with this administration. You don't have to just accept this. This is garbage. This is just crap. Like, this is Hillary Clinton's foreign policy. This is Obama's foreign policy. This is Joe Biden's foreign policy. And this is George Bush and John McCain and Mitt Romney. This is just terrible. Like, this is not anything we should be accepting. This was we were told there was going to be higher standards. We were told the age of wokeness was over. It takes money to kill the bad guys. Like, it's a passing statement kind of, but like, it's telling, because that means that is still the mentality here in the Pentagon. That mentality never left. Pete Hegseth just embraced it. So that is the latest on this war and the latest on the administration as a whole. And it's just completely out of control. This needs to end, obviously. And I don't know that it will. I don't know when this war is going to end. We're stuck in this loop of escalation at this point. And there is no clear off-ramp in sight. It seems as Trump is desperately looking for one in the moments that he's there, in the moments that he's not utterly deranged and contradicting himself in every sentence. It seems as if he wants an off-ramp here, but he has no idea how he's actually going to get there. So that's where we are today. We'll of course continue updating you guys here on the show as this war goes on, as this progresses. But that's where we'll end it off for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to go down below and hit like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next episode. Have a good day.
It is about who we are. It is about what we believe.
They're building up this case just like we did in Iraq. Build up the war propaganda. There was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq.
The more you tell the truth, the stronger you become.
Mr. Speaker, we're not rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic tonight. We're putting coal in the boiler and setting a course for the iceberg.